Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show, Science Dispatch Podcast. Lovely to be with you as always. My name is Cameron English. I'm your host, joined by Dr. Chuck Dinerstein, terrific physician, surgeon, all-around sharp guy that you should, whose work you should read. What's going on, Chuck? How are you?
I'm great. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Good to go. Approaching another holiday weekend. I like to have a holiday every month, so this is good.
I appreciate holidays, whatever the topic, whatever the motivation. It's an excuse to have a Long Island, which is terrific.
Okay, because I was going to say it's very tough with two little kids to have a holiday.
Yes, that's true. That's true. You got to get a babysitter. It's a challenge, but it's fatherhood, and it's a joyful experience despite its challenges. I'm sure you would agree.
Yes.
All right, so we've got another story from you this week, and we're continuing our accounting of your experience on Ozempic, which is this GLP-1 weight loss drug. It's all the rage. All the celebrities are using it, but it seems to be quite effective for helping people manage their weight and reduce their risks for all sorts of nasty metabolic conditions that do bad things to people that we want to limit. So this story is called The Ozempic Plateau, Time for a Course Correction, ? So introduction, and then Chuck break this all down for us. So the Ozempic Plateau, where weight loss dreams go to level to meet a lackluster fate. You've been shedding pounds like a pro only to hit a hunger wall that no amount of exercise can break through. Has Ozempic turned from miracle to meh? Intriguing stuff. For people that aren't familiar with this series of articles you're writing, Chuck, maybe just give us a little introduction and then explain what you're talking about here.
Right. Well, for a variety of reasons, primarily my cardiologist and my wife, I am taking Ozempic. And I figured now that I was taking it, I might try to do a kind of a first-person set of articles on it as things were moving along. So this is here at about 5 to 6 weeks, and I'm talking about how it's going. Now, to be fair, I would say I was losing about 2 pounds a week, which is not bad considering my exercise profile, which is not great. And so that's been going pretty well, but that's begun to slow up in the last little while. In addition, there's a phrase that I didn't understand previously that I understand now. Hunger noises have returned a little bit to my life. The initial few weeks with Ozempic, there was not a lot of interest in eating. There was no hunger noise, but hunger noises have started to return a little bit. And so I wanted to kind of look at what was going on, what was said in the medical literature about it. And in fact, at about 5 to 6 weeks, based on the pharmacokinetics of the drug, I've kind of reached a steady state with the drug. I don't have the big highs and lows that are associated with a drug that's given to you weekly. And there's two ways to consider that. One of it is a term that we call tachyphylaxis, which is a fancy way of saying you get used to the new level of the drug, and like a thermostat, it resets itself to a new set point. Tachyphylaxis is one of the reasons that people get that have substance use disorders or addictions, whatever we're calling them this month, find a need for increasing amounts of their substance of choice because they're becoming more and more tolerant to the effects that are there. So part of what's going on is that there is this steady state and there is a little bit of a tachyphylaxis. So the literature on this is not particularly good, and it seems that the impact of the GLP-1s in terms of your sense of fullness may be reduced, and you may have less interest in eating food over time. But I did not in particular find that to be the case. The other thing that affects this is the fact that a metabolism built over centuries, if not millennia, is used to people not eating all the time. Supermarkets are a relatively new invention, and we don't have to go back a whole long way to find out that there were times when there wasn't a lot of food around, and our metabolism has found ways to make up for that. So fat, of course, is a storage form of energy in addition to being an insulator for people in cold weather. And the whole shift of energy from carbohydrates to fats is the standard practice that we see when you talk about people that are on an Atkins diet or a paleo diet. And part of that is a shift that we see with the GLPs because you're making different use of the glucose that you have available to you. As a result, in this kind of starvation state, your muscles begin to adapt. Your brain certainly adapts to a new energy source. And so your overall metabolic needs drop when you're faced with starvation. So it's not surprising that your ability to lose weight diminishes as you decrease the amount of calories you take in. And this is just as true for any diet as it is for the GLP-1s. So I think that was the point I was getting at. And then, of course, I ran across this very interesting discussion about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and Huntington's disease, which I was not aware of. And what they found is that in some small studies, individuals with these diseases have changes in their mitochondria, and in the presence of ketones, they do far better managing their energy needs than in the face of a regular diet. And so the question has been raised whether people with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Huntington can go on some type of a keto diet and find improvement. And in fact, there are some small studies that show cognitive improvement for individuals when they take a supplement of medium-chain triglycerides, which is basically a palatable fat and drink of fat. And I thought that was a fascinating little nugget to have come across during my Ozempic journey.
So in the context of this drug, can anything be done to mitigate this the effects you're talking about? And I'm sure it's different for different people, but like on diets generally, the advice you'll hear from I don't know, exercise physiologists and dietitians and so forth is, start tweaking individual variables, like, change the composition of your diet a little bit, or change when you eat, or exercise a little differently. And right, you're just trying to do something to upregulate your metabolism or get yourself back on track. How does that work when you introduce a drug like this?
So I don't think we're able to necessarily tweak our metabolism to a higher rate. I think that but what I describe in the article and what I'm trying for myself and what I think is in talking about the GLP-1s, their great strength is that you will feel less hungry, you will eat less unless you just wolf your food down, because you just can't get it all in. You feel full, and then and one time when you overeat and you feel nauseous, you say, okay, I know that full feeling, I'm going to stop because I know what's going to happen next. And that opens up what I describe as a behavioral space. That gives you that physiologic effect early on, gives you the space to do some other things. And including in that would be, God forbid, you actually do some more exercise. Or in terms of behavior, and this is kind of one of the things I said, is I've gotten to be better about my response to hunger. now. I reckon, I'll go out and I say, oh, gee, I'm hungry. But I know that that really is probably because I'm hungry because I'm bored more than I'm hungry because I must get some food, otherwise my brain will die. And so I don't have to take the trip to raid the pantry or the pantry drive-by. I can skip that because I know from some reflection that that hunger is not real, or that it's transient and will be gone in 5 or 6 minutes, and I don't have to act upon it. And I think that that's the other advantage of this, is that if you're, I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this word, mindful enough in these situations, it opens up a space for you to begin to make some other changes. And that's the advantage of this, is that it, having taken the physiology out for several months, it allows you to develop some new eating habits. But if you don't develop the new eating habits, and you don't change the way you're going to change your life, then the day that you stop taking the drugs will be the day you start regaining the weight.
That's an interesting point. And it reminds me of some ideas I'm reading in this book right now. It's called The Biology of Desire, and it's all about addiction. And you'll know this as a physician, but he talks about how, when you start using a drug or you quit using a drug, your brain literally starts to rewire itself, and you develop new habits as a result of this, because you're effectively training your brain to change the way that you live, or the way it perceives the world around you. So I'm wondering, could that help explain why these drugs would work over the long term? So as you said, right, you take the drug and you notice those moments where you would normally raid the pantry, you don't. So I'm wondering, over time, do those good decisions, or I'm sorry, alternative decisions, maybe, I don't know, right? They're people who use drugs. They're not addicts. So anyways,
those better decisions. Let's call them that. We can call them that.
Sure. According to your truth, the decisions that you prefer versus yes. Sorry, I'm just kidding. If it's not clear, I don't care if I offend anybody, because I'm trying to use clear language. Anyways, all I'm getting at is, do you start to appreciate or enjoy those decisions more? Like, I notice when I go to the gym consistently, I actually enjoy getting on the bike, because I start to form these memories of putting on heavy metal that I love and running and getting sweaty, and then you get that endorphin rush.
Yes, and don't forget the endorphins. Don't leave out the endorphins.
Yes.
They are critical in that one. I think that I think that the overall, that the people that are taking the GLP-1s now, this is now the second generation in. I would argue that the first generation were the people that needed to lose 10 pounds to get into a wedding dress, and they did it, and that was it. But now that it's moving out into the world of the people with weight problems, I think we're going to start to see how well it does. And most of the reputable prescriptions that I've seen come with nutritional advice and come with some exercise advice. Now, whether that advice is taken or whether the people are reflective or not to use it, that's a different question. But I think that the GLP-1s by themselves, unless you're going to take them continuously forever and ever, are not going to be the magic bullet. Once again, that the magic in these drugs is going to be the fact that it gives you a second chance by tamping down your normal physiologic responses to create some new habits. And the more successful you are at creating those new habits, the more likely you are to maintain them. For example, we go out to dinner, but I find now that in some restaurants where where the goal is quantity over necessarily quantity, that for me it's easier to get 2 appetizers than to get an appetizer and an entree, because I'm just going to be too full. I'm never going to finish that. And it's recognizing those things. I think that those are going to have the longest term impact. When I put the needle down, and which is sometime, down the line. We'll see. The usual, recommendation now is somewhere is out at about 6 months, and we'll be coming up on that in a few months, and we'll see what to do, and I'll try and write something about how that decision goes.
Great stuff. Well, we will follow along excitedly as Dr. Dinerstein records his experience. And in all seriousness, I mean, there's some interesting science to learn here, and I think this speaks to, at least for some people, how effective these drugs have been. I know they're controversial, and it irritates a lot of people when you give them a cheat code like, you can't lose weight this way, or, this is a big pharma money grab or whatever. But it seems like this is having positive effects for a lot of people. So I'm at least encouraged by that. But until we cover that story and any other story, follow us on social media. It's at ACSH.org on Twitter, at CamJEnglish. Comments and questions are welcome. Go to the website, acsh.org, type in or click the subscribe button at the top, punch in your email address, and we'll send you everything we write right to your inbox. And then when you show up for the show, you'll go, I know what that story is because I've read it, and you'll get a little bit more out of this. So thank you so much for being here with us, and we will see you next time.